Hello, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. I know I don't get these out very often, but I hope they're helpful regardless. Today is a interesting one with black ceramic, turquoise, carbon fiber. Enjoy. Well, let's get right into it. Things we need to start: turquoise true stone, black ceramic, carbon fiber strands. True stone I just find easier to work with, making a circle and then drilling a hole in the middle so that we can take our boring tool and make it 0.25 to 0.3 millimeters bigger than the black ceramic diameter that we are trying to fit it over. This can also be done with sanding if you don't have a boring tool. This tool just makes it flat on the inside and not making sure you don't have any curves or anything, but I did this sanding for a long time and it works just fine. We got a perfect fit, 0.25 to 0.3 millimeters bigger on the inside than the black ceramic core it's going over. We will divide that by 2, and we're gonna need to break it right in half. I always just take a razor blade in half, hit the hammer a few times softly. Sometimes it breaks in the wrong spot, which is fine. We can still put it back together. I actually just got a new piece because I didn't want to deal with it. And then perfect fit in there. Take some medium CA glue or epoxy would work as well, and we are going to put the pieces together. With this one, since I will be cutting out a lot of that turquoise, only one side needs to be flush with the ring, the other side doesn't matter. So that's what I was doing when I was pressing down. I was making sure that there were no gaps on one side of it. And the other side, doesn't matter what gaps there are. We're going to be cutting that side out anyway. Once that is dry, I do just take it to the belt sander again. I find it easier and faster to take off all the excess material on here before taking it off on the lathe. The inlay flush with the black ceramic, easy enough. For anyone who comments about this new mandrel, maybe they've seen lying around, it did cost as much as my Harbor Freight lathe, but it is the only mandrel or ring holder that spins true on my lathe. So I'll take it. I like it. There's a few things that you can't do everything with. You'll see later on, but so far it works pretty good for me. I'm just measuring what my original ring was, and that was 2.5 millimeters or so. I'll mark on the new ring so I know where to cut it to, so we can make it look as close to the picture as possible. Sometimes true stone just kind of cuts out. I don't know if you saw that piece fly out, so I just want to work it slowly until it's to where you need it. And then to make sure to clear out the groove even more of any glue or colors or anything I will just take sandpaper and clear it out some more. To the strands. You need, I don't know, 5 maybe. Depending on how big your inlay is, I'd take 5 strands out of here. Perfect, 5 will work great on this ring. We're gonna go back to the thick CA glue and put a little dab right on the ring where we will place the first ends of the carbon fiber and make sure it's as flush as possible. Make sure that every layer is as strong as it can be with the carbon fiber and the glue seeps in all the way. It is a process. We're gonna roll glue until it is all the way, until the gap is filled up all the way. That way we make sure not to have any weird air bubbles. No carbon fiber starts to stick up, and better quality ring I found doing it this way. The gap is full. We cut off the extra that we don't need. And I'm going to place several CA, thin CA drops in there to make sure that we cover any gaps that might have not been filled during the first process. And roly-poly until that's in there. And then we'll wipe the rest of it off until it dries. The strands are probably not very good. You don't want to breathe those in. I have an exhaust now underneath it to catch all of the extra carbon fiber, as well as gloves, as well as a mask. Make sure to always have those when you're working with the carbon fiber. And then even still, I'll get little scratchy slivers for the rest of the day. Probably not good for me, but what are you gonna do? I did the roly-poly with the thin CA glue again once we got down to this layer, and that's just to make sure that it seeps in as much as we can until we start the final sanding. And we'll just sand up until, well, really whatever you want, but I'm gonna go up to 400 on the carbon fiber, actually 800 on the carbon fiber, and then to make sure the true stone is as good as it looks, use some mesh pads to make sure that it doesn't have any micro scratches. I'm going to take some acetone on the outer edge to clean up anything, make sure that the finish will stick a little bit better. And 3 drops on the ring. And again, we're going to roll it until that thin CA, flex CA, which I have in my shop. We're just going to roll that until it dries. The toothpick, by the way, on the first part was to make sure that it gets evenly coated on all parts of the ring and none of it's missing. Once it dries, 800, maybe even 400 to smooth out the CA coating, making sure not to sand out too much down to the inlay, otherwise you don't have a finish on it. This is the point where I change mandrels because I found it easier to deal with this mandrel where I can get around the outside, so I can cover the whole ring with my sandpaper and not worry about going too deep. With some Zam polish on these Ryobi polishing cloths that normally go into a drill, we will polish up the ring. Basically done at this point. Any glue that might have been dried on the inside, you can just scrape off with a razor blade on the ceramic and tungsten. That's the easiest way I've found to get rid of it. I think for the best looking finish, just take a clean cotton cloth and wipe off all the extra residue that you have on from your polish compound. And that's that. Again guys, thanks for sticking around and enjoying the videos. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. The ceramic blanks and a few other supplies are on my website, shopdreamwood.com. And look forward to hearing from anyone who has questions.